Yeah, okay, that's good. All right.
I mean, that's pretty close.
All right. Welcome back to 6 Years Later Leftovers Chat. We're trucking through season 3. In case anyone is wondering, I'm Ethan. I've seen the show a whole lot. I'm here. I'm watching it one episode at a time with Benji, who hasn't seen it. He's over in England. Say hi, buddy.
Hey.
Hey. So I don't know if you saw my Westworld show I do on Crazy Hank TV this week, but I did give us a plug. I don't know if it did very much, but I don't know if you watched the whole thing. The two guys I did it with were very impressed with your ability to not just watch the next episode and binge. So hats off to you, sir.
I am equally impressed. What can I say?
Yeah, the podcast, the show here doesn't really work with you watching it all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
But we are in season 3.
I just make up for it by doubling down on my binging of series that aren't The Leftovers. So
on what?
On series that aren't The Leftovers. So
yeah,
I just compensate via other TV shows.
Right. Oh, good. This is a good one to savor. We are on season 3, episode 3, Crazy White Fella Thinking. And we did do a reaction video. And it took you a minute to figure out, now that we've gotten copies that have the credit songs on there, that we have the Richard Cheese version of Personal Jesus by Depeche Mode. And, I mean, what do you think of that? That was weird. I'm not a fan of that tune. That version of that song. But
I hadn't heard the original. I just knew of the band. I think my mum was a fan of them back in the day, so I knew who Depeche Mode were. But when I heard the intro, I was like, this is not the sound that I imagined coming from Depeche Mode. Maybe I was mistaken. But
it is.
As you highlighted, it's a cover.
Did you listen to it since then? The original?
No. I think I've heard it once or twice though, so I kind of know what it sounds like.
Completely different. They're in a new wave, almost synth poppy kind of genre, so it was completely different and much better. And Johnny Cash does a good version of that one too. But this episode, Crazy White Fella Thinking, is all about Kevin Garvey Sr., and we are officially in Australia. And I think we're in Australia for a while.
Seems to be that way. Although you did say the next episode was about Matt. And as far as I know, Matt is not in Australia yet.
In 2 episodes is Matt.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So we open with a flash to Kevin Garvey Sr. in the moments after the sudden departure. That's one of my favorite shots of the series. That might have actually been from season 1 as well. I don't remember. In my mind, it's something they do to show him before. But I just love all the chaos that they show in one shot there.
Yeah, well, I remember seeing that shot in the trailer for this season. And so when it came up in this episode, in this functionality, I was a little disappointed because it's such a good shot and it was in the trailer, and I was kind of excited. I was like, oh, we're going to get to see, more of Kevin Garvey Sr. in his role as a chief of police, because I thought that'd be an interesting thing to see. But then you just see this for a flash, and then it sort of moves past it. So I was like, well, I guess we saw about the extent of that, and it was roughly the same amount of time we saw it in the trailer. So tried not to get too annoyed about that.
Yeah, and someone pointed out to me also, because Westworld had a similar global event happen where there was supposed to be chaos reigning supreme, and I pointed this shot out as a better chaos done better, and someone pointed out that we don't know when after the departure this was. Is this immediately after, or is this a day or two after? It's hard to tell, but it's still a great shot. You know what I mean? And I could see where it would be a day or so after, or right after.
I always felt like it was right after.
Yeah.
Or at least that felt like how it was meant to be. Who knows?
But back in Australia, we follow Kevin Sr. as he scopes out an ancient Aboriginal tribal dance, which he recreates that evening. He is following a song line, but is quickly arrested by the Aboriginal police for desecrating tribal lands. The police confiscate his equipment, but he just wants the tape Kevin Jr. made with him a long time ago, talking about ducks and the natural order of things. I loved listening to this tape. And I know you really enjoyed, just from watching your reaction, this first him dancing and putting on the tribal paint and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean it's bizarre. It's a great way of starting like in media res, where you just kind of plunk the viewer right in the middle of the story, and we have no idea what's going on. There's no exposition, and we're just rolling with it, and eventually we find out, what exactly was going on. But it's just so out of the blue that you have to laugh. So I enjoyed it.
It speaks to the title, Crazy White Fella Thinking.
Crazy white fella singing.
Yeah, right. But he's doing the whole nine. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, if you have more to say on the tribal dance, I was just going to backtrack quickly to the tape recorder.
Yeah, I want to talk about the tape for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
In this particular instance of the tape, it's Kevin Garvey Jr. talking about ducks and being held underwater, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or not being held underwater, but ducks going underwater and the time it takes them to come up. And when I was rewatching this episode, it reminded me of that moment from the trailer, and I'm starting to feel like I'm relying a little too heavily on the trailer for a lot of this stuff that I'm bringing in. But I saw it, so I'm going to point it out. When Kevin Garvey Sr. is kind of holding Kevin and taking him under the water, I believe that's what happens in the trailer. So we know that's going to happen sooner or later. And here we get Kevin talking about the ducks being underwater, when they're going to come back up. And there's quite a few moments this episode that I feel like could play into that idea of Kevin Garvey Sr. sacrificing Kevin Garvey Jr., because that's certainly what it looks like in the trailer. So it feels a little bit like cheating, because if I hadn't seen the trailer, I wouldn't be able to make that comment. But I'd also, it's I feel like it's a valid observation.
Back when the show was on, we all saw the trailer. We all studied the trailer, like the Zapruder film. I don't know if you get that reference at all.
No.
The Zapruder film was it's that piece of footage of John F. Kennedy getting shot.
Oh, okay. Right.
It was a shot by a guy named Zapruder. So when I talk about, studying stuff like the Zapruder film, that, it's a watch piece of film in history, probably looking for things. So, we all see all the trailer. We kind of know what's coming there. But yeah, I mean, the whole, and I'll get into it to more detail later down in the episode, but this tape that he has that he's holding on to is interesting.
For sure.
Especially if we'll get to it. You ready for me to go on?
I have a line in my notes about something that I think is coming up in the next scene. Let me just clarify, we haven't gone past it. So have we talked about the next audio clip from the recording yet? No.
Nope.
Well, in that case we can go
on. At the post office, Kevin Sr. tries to get the address of Christopher Sunday before picking up a package from Matt Jameson. Package that has money, the National Geographic, and the Book of Kevin. He is furious as he reads that the book. He's furious as he reads the book and calls Matt. Is very upset that he's not in the Book of Kevin. It's not about him. Matt explains that the book is about Junior. And he says, "I'm not a part of Kevin Jr.'s story. He is a part of mine." I think this is also, it says he doesn't want him anywhere near Australia, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a couple things to point out about this is, they're playing with time here a little bit, because we're going back in time to when Mary was still with him, still with Matt. And I have stuff to say about the Kevin Jr. Senior tape conversation, but you sound like you do too. So, the Reagan taxi driver conversation.
The one about someone killing the president.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have a feeling maybe it's the same thing, maybe not. But it's funny that they're talking about this, given that when Kevin shot Patty, it was under the role of her being a presidential candidate, right?
Right. I never made that one connection. That's a good one.
And obviously, if this is something that was in Kevin's mind from a young child, and this journey into the hotel is possibly related to his subconscious mind and what goes on in there. Maybe that's what caused it.
That's a good dot connection. Do you know about what they're talking about? The historical thing they're talking about?
No, I mean, for the second time this episode, I'm going to show my ignorance of the world of American presidential assassination attempts.
Right. Well, it's a long history, so buckle in. Have you ever seen the movie Taxi Driver?
I haven't, but
that's okay.
It's on the list. Is all I can say.
It's a famous movie. It's Robert De Niro's first big movie. It was Martin Scorsese movie, and Jodie Foster was in it, and she was very young. And this guy got this idea in his head. His name was John Hinckley. I think. I sometimes get him confused with Lennon's assassin, John Lennon's assassin, which is Mark David Chapman, I think. This is John Hinckley, and he said the reason why he tried to assassinate President Reagan to prove his love for Jodie Foster, who he fell in love with from watching Taxi Driver. Okay. That's the story. That's what happened in history. And this is listening to Kevin Sr. basically tell Kevin Jr. that he can say whatever he wants. He shot the president because he's crazy. That's the only reason. Which is interesting considering, what Kevin Sr. is doing in this episode. That's how I think it relates. But yeah, I wanted to ask you what you thought of Kevin Sr.'s reaction to the book.
Well, I tried. I tried so hard to decipher anything that he was scribbling, and I don't know if it's already. I imagine it's already been done, and so I kind of gave up in the end. I figured if there is anything to be deciphered from what he's written, somebody's already done it. I'm not going to spend any more time on it. But apart from the general level of dissatisfaction he had with it, I didn't see anything specific.
And I guess he feels like his story is, after watching the episode, that he's going to be the one to stop the flood. I guess we'll get into that more when we get to Christopher Sunday. But, he's pretty mad. He throws this book away we think is going to be important. And he just throws it away, and then it starts to rain. He also tells Matt to get some scuba gear because the flood is coming. And I don't know if it's now or later, but he pulls away from a building. It might be after he steals Christopher Sunday's address, and there's a spray painting on the side of the building that may or may not be the Oceanic Airlines symbol. Because they fly to Australia. I don't know if you knew that.
Sydney.
Yeah. So he goes to the Aboriginal attaché to get Christopher Sunday's information. He is spotted. He steals the information and runs away to Christopher Sunday's. And the only really...
Oh, hang on.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. I totally missed a moment that I wanted to go over quickly.
Yeah.
And that was, I believe, during the phone call between Matt and Kevin Sr. And it's where they talk about children in scripture and Abraham and Isaac.
Sure.
And obviously the story of Abraham and Isaac Abraham being asked to sacrifice his son Isaac. In the end he doesn't need to, but he all but goes through with it. And again, I would just point to the shot we've all seen from the trailer where Kevin Sr. seems to be doing a similar kind of thing to Kevin Jr. Um, that was about it.
Yep. Yep. And we'll get in more into that. But my favorite part of him talking to the attaché, Sharon, I think her name is she lists all the things that he's done, and then he throws it back in her face about the Australian government's treatment of the Aboriginal people, and her response is, "We apologize for that."
Yeah.
It's it's pretty funny and sad all at once. Yeah, and
Yeah.
we didn't need
I
to go
didn't know
through
if there was
that.
any significance to the when she says she painted it herself, that painting. Um, I don't know. I mean, she's accusing Kevin Garvey Senior of appropriating the Aboriginal culture, and
Right,
yet she's kind of making her own paintings to put on her own walls.
right,
Kind of
100%.
hypocritical.
Um, so I'm gonna go into the Christopher Sunday stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a ton here. At Christopher Sundays, he explains that he used to hear voices starting after the sudden departure. He explains that he started doing what the voices told him, so he came to Australia and took God's tongue and followed many signs that led him to Tony the Chicken and to using the tape Kevin Jr. made as guidance. Because, and I quote, on the 7th anniversary of the sudden departure, he believes a great flood will come and he has to sing to make it stop. Senior explains that he needs Sunday's song to stop the flood. Christopher explains his song brings the rain. It doesn't stop it, but if Kevin will fix his leaky roof, he will teach him the song.
Mm-hmm. So when I straight after hearing Kevin Garvey's explanation of why he was doing what he was doing, um, I actually gave more weight to his actions when I didn't know the reasons behind them, if that makes sense. When it was a mystery, because you kind of fill in the blank yourself, and you think something really, I don't know, some kind of experience which must have happened, some powerful revelation to Kevin Garvey Senior. He's doing this for a reason. He seems very motivated. You assume that based on how extremely weird and bizarre what he's doing is, there has to be an equally strong reason behind it. You would assume they kind of line up. But then when he goes through and he explains it's because of, well, he took a drug here and then saw a chicken here, and there's a tape recording here, which means a reference to that, which could mean that. Suddenly, it just doesn't have any of the same weight to it. And I guess that's, it's never as compelling when you understand the exact thought process behind this stuff as when it leaves it blank, like when we opened on this episode.
Yeah, and I guess I want to ask you from, just hearing you talk about it, like he had voices in his head and they told him to go to Australia, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so did they stop right then and he just started reading into everything that happened to him?
Well, it sure sounds like that.
Yeah, doesn't it sound like, whatever it is, stop talking, and he just, he went anyway, the wind blew,
Mm-hmm.
reading everything is a tea leaf. He's going this way and that. Um and the Tony the chicken thing,
Mm-hmm.
it just proves this point. He goes to see the chicken plucks on his bag, which has the tape in it, which is the Kevin tape.
Mm-hmm.
So, and why did not he read that into Kevin being the one that could save the flood or anything else, or just read it into the fact
Mm-hmm.
that maybe he should connect with his son more?
Yeah, I mean, it could have easily been, oh crap, I got to make sure Kevin fulfills his lifelong dream of becoming an anchor man so that the rains don't come.
Right. And, let us dive into the international assassin connection and the
Mm-hmm.
God's tongue. Okay? Because just like a lot of things in season 2, you think sometimes there's more there, and there's not, right?
Mhm.
But Kevin did see his father, and his father did say he was in Australia, and he did say he was on
Mhm.
God's tongue, and we saw that depicted um,
Mhm.
on film.
Mhm.
And then he tells this story, and it's definitely a wind taken out of your leftover sails when he says, "I don't know what happened. I woke up 2 weeks later in Perth."
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
Um, what did you make of that? I'm very curious to hear.
Well, I mean, I was half expecting to actually see it take place,
Right.
and I was kind of disappointed when we didn't. But I'm assuming it's another. I mean, we've only got 8 episodes. We've got to make sure we're real fast about this stuff. And we've seen it already, so there's no need to see it again, I guess, if we saw the important part. But I mean, all I said yesterday was that no, what did I say yesterday? Whenever we did the reaction was the potential implications of him saying, and then I woke up and it turned out I hadn't talked to God.
Right.
We know he has talked to Kevin, so we know he's for one he's wrong about not talking to anyone because he did talk to Kevin. Does that mean he's also wrong about the second part? And what does that? What do we make of Kevin after that? What does that imply of Kevin if he's the kind of guy that can be reached by taking a substance called God's tongue?
Um, okay, so it's tricky because it's one of those situations where I don't want to like give too much away where I stand on this subject, but you know, I do believe in some kind of astral plane in this show. But it's one of those big lingering questions about this particular area about international assassin and what Kevin Senior says here, because
Mm-hmm.
everything else that he says around this area is crazy. Sounds like crazy batshit stuff. So I
Right.
mean that's always going to be a question mark there.
Well, it's weird because everything that he talks about is crazy, yeah. But this is the one part he doesn't talk about, so maybe it's the one part that isn't quite so crazy.
Oh, and maybe he just glossed over it because he didn't want to face if something did happen there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
there's some stuff in this episode about making up a story to make yourself feel
Mm-hmm.
better, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, um,
And he
uh,
says explicitly how all he wants is purpose. That's what he asked Tony the chicken for. Like, what is his purpose?
and this chicken started plucking the tape, and he said, "Look to your sons."
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and it was a tape that it was made after Mrs. Garvey died of cancer, and they went on like a bonding trip, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, is this the last time we hear what is on the tape?
Um, I no, it's not.
Okay, because I don't know if I have it written down. Okay, yeah, it's after the next part.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I wanted to bring up is Sunday says his song is meant to bring the rain, not stop the rain.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, I guess we'll never know now.
senior is says that's open to interpretation,
Uh-huh.
right? So everything he's saying is open to interpretation, but he's taking it as fact that Tony the chicken sent him Kevin's
Yeah.
tape. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So I don't know. Um, uh, So, as Kevin is fixing the roof, he gets startled by authorities and falls directly onto Christopher Sunday, and he's kicked out of the ambulance for being annoying. Christopher Sunday doesn't look like he's in good shape. No.
No. But I mean, I still think that's pretty harsh to leave somebody in the I assume this is like the Australian outback, or it looks a pretty tough environment to
He
abandon an
he was
elderly
be,
man in.
he was being pretty interfering, pretty forceful. I agree with you, especially after we see what he goes through.
Yeah,
And if he wanted to get back to civilization, he could have walked directly back where he came from.
I guess.
You know what I mean?
Even then,
Like, I'm not excusing it. I
nobody,
agree with you, but
that guy had no idea what kind of underlying health conditions he might have had. So
Right. All right. So this part's uh, a little deep. Okay.
mm-hmm.
While wandering in the outback, a black VW Bug pulls up, and a man gets out of the car and starts pouring gasoline onto himself and his car. Senior tries to stop him. They didn't take me. He didn't take most of us, he says. And he asks, "Would you kill a baby if it would cure cancer?" No, Kevin Sr. says. Well, that's exactly what I said. The man sets himself and the car on fire, and Kevin Sr. drives out of the way. And I guess while he's wandering, we do hear the tape again. And it's about Senior telling Junior that Garvey men chart their own course. They don't listen to the maps you take. You have to chart your own course because AAA will take you the way of seeing the Howard Johnsons and the big ball of twine and all that. So Garvey men have to make their own way.
Just as he turns off the road and into the not road.
And what do you think about this? This is some random stuff here.
Yeah.
This guy.
And again, it's like, it's another one of those things that's come in so late in the game that I feel like it's either going to be of no importance or super important. I just feel like it's got to be either one of them, right?
Right.
Either it means nothing or it's like everything. So I'm leaning towards a random interaction.
This episode came along with one of the interviews came along with, and I've mentioned this before. One of the movies that inspired us was, I think it's called Picnic at Hanging Rock, about these girls at this girls' school in the early 20th century go to this park and a bunch of them disappear, and no one knows whatever happened to them. And it just in this it's an Australian movie, and it's just this world of weird Australian movies. And I actually went to watch the movie, and I did not like it, especially because I found out that it is framed as a real story, but it's not.
I mean, you enjoyed Fargo, right?
Yeah. They do that same thing, but that movie was really good. But that relates at the end of the series more to The Leftovers, which we can talk about then if we remember. And I think after it, the morning after, you see that shot of the Australian outback in the foreground. You see this burnt husk of a man. That might have my vote for like the best shot of the series, like beauty wise.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, if there's any contenders, I'd imagine a fair few of them are coming from this episode alone. I like the one just before that when he's standing in the rain with the kind of burnt out husk of the car next to him.
Right.
And obviously the rains, so that symbolism going. And I forgot to mention there's a song as well while he's like trekking across. And I believe the song is about rain, and it's called
Is it Lonely in the Night?
Love a Rainy Night.
Oh, I love the rainy night.
The rainy night, yeah. Which is what he gets.
And he's got kind of his. This is another reference. Forrest Gump. You seen that?
It's on the list.
It's on the list. So he has a Lieutenant Dan moment I like to call where he challenges God in the middle of the night. You know what I mean? Is that what you have for me? That kind of thing. He looks through the car, yells at God, says, "You can't stop me." The clouds open up and it rains. He gets water he needed, but it costs him his tape, right? Tape's been destroyed by the water. And he continues to wander and has a big run-in with a snake who he calls his totem, but it bites him. He kills the snake. It's kind of a callback almost to the beginning of season 2 with the cave woman and the snake. But he comes across this giant cross just as he's reaching his end point. I can't make it anymore. He writes something down on his Book of Kevin page. he passes out with his crutches in the form of a crucifix, and before his eyes completely shut, he sees a vision of someone on a horse.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's a choir in the background singing a choir version. It's a different song called "We Will Rock You."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anything there about him reaching the end and just finding that cross right in time to pass out? Probably thinks he's going to die.
And this is exactly why I said the ambulance guy was really not doing his job.
Yeah, it's true. Anything else about Kevin Sr. just in the wilderness with the guy burning the car and everything?
I mean, we've seen so many times this episode the fallacy of trying to connect the dots when there aren't any dots to be connected, and we've seen how Kevin himself falls into that. We see later how Grace falls into that. And I don't want to fall into that, so I'm not going to try and connect any dots between what's happened to Kevin and the outback and anything else that we have going on.
Are you letting the mystery be?
Yeah, I'll give it an episode off. Okay. I'll be back next episode.
Yeah, I got you. He wakes up. Now there's some stuff here. He wakes up in a child's room in a house with a dog. He has been cared for with an IV and pulls out a catheter, which is always fun to watch. Why is that his first move? Why is that like a number one? Because, something alien in your body, I guess, but I don't need to see that. He wanders the house, sees a phone, and calls Matt, who is home and not looking well. It's been 3 weeks since they spoke. Matt tries to get Kevin to send the book back, but once Matt realizes Kevin threw it away, Matt will not help him and tells him to go fuck himself. Kevin sees people building an ark outside of the house and goes to say hi. They say the woman in the house will take better care of him than a hospital. He goes inside, takes some of the dog's medication, gets some food, starts looking through some personal effects in the house while eating. He sees the picture of the lady from episode 2 with her family and her children. Passes out. He wakes up, and now it's night. He goes outside, and we are caught up to the last episode where he is shot with the tranquilizer gun. So, first of all, I've never taken dog medication. Looks like it's fun. And I do have something to say about this ark being built outside, but I want to hear what you have to say first.
I mean, it's an ark, and we all know the story of the ark, which was for when the Great Flood came. So, somebody certainly seems to share Kevin's notion that there's a lot of rain coming sometime soon. And we also know that Matt Jameson's young boy is called Noah. So we got Noah, we got an ark, and we got Kevin. So we got all the ingredients there. I don't know what will come of it though.
So here's what I noticed. And I noticed it this time, and I went back to Reddit to check it out if it was noticed when the episode happened, and it definitely was. I don't think the people building the ark were real. Now, did you in your mind have any feeling that they were real? Did you think they were real people that were there?
When he goes to speak to them, yeah, I mean, they look real, they talk real, and they seem to know about Chris, which is, it's a little bit of objective stuff that's, how, anyway, they seem to have know what's going on. The time when I started to doubt them was later when he talks to Grace, and obviously Grace is there by herself, and she talks about how it's just her there. And I was like, wait a second, wasn't there a bunch of people there before? But I mean, I didn't think too much about it.
If you go back and do some screen comparisons to when he's looking through the book, you'll notice that a lot of the people outside are wearing, you can match them up with the children in the book wearing the same clothes, adult and children versions. Um, it's a deep one. I wouldn't have gotten on first watch or second watch or third watch, but it's there, and it's
Uh-huh.
crazy, and it seems like they were an aberration, maybe a version of something that happened maybe while I was asleep after he looked through the book.
Hmm.
Um, you know what I mean? Um,
Wait, does he?
he goes
Does
outside
he see them?
first,
He sees them before he looks through the book, though.
right? But at that point, if it's a thing that's happening in a fever dream, I think they're playing with time
Uh-huh.
a lot here.
So wait, do we see? Do we see the ark again?
Um, in this episode, I think it's been outside the church. I
Right,
think
but if they're not real, all I'm saying is the ark real?
um, I don't know if I want to answer that.
Right.
Do you know
Do
what I
we
mean?
see the ark
I think
without the people?
the structure out there of the arc is there.
Uh-huh.
Like a half-built arc is out there. I
Wow.
think that is true.
Man, it's stuff like that that's like just makes you angry.
Well, they're messing
Why
with you.
didn't I do that?
They're messing with you a little bit, right?
Uh,
Yeah.
uh.
At some point, you're
I'm
just
never
kind
going
of
to
like,
apologize for looking for that stuff again. Then
what?
I said I'm not going to apologize for looking for that stuff because clearly it exists.
Oh yeah, it exists. Yeah. Um, and so we kind of
Do you reckon
expected.
Damien Lindelof would, if something like this happened by accident, you reckon he'd just take credit for it, or at least not, say no, or just kind of let it slide? Because I mean, when you have so many people like looking through different episodes trying to find connections, you're obviously going to get people finding stuff that's a coincidence, but it's still kind of cool.
Yeah, and there's going to be so much. That's why after they say a couple things here or there,
Mm-hmm.
they don't say anything because at some point, and it goes back to my point that I made while we were watching I Live Here Now, which is like the art, the song, the whatever gets put out in the world and people interpret it how they want, no matter how it was written or done. And I think this is the same kind of way. This is not a show. Uh, this is a show where, it's meant for interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the Talmud, you know, ancient Hebrew book that it's meant to be argued about over and over again
Mm-hmm.
till the end of time because of, you know, words here, words there, and what they mean. I think The Leftovers is very much like it. That's why it's an endless well, no pun intended, to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
I think some things are meant there, and I think they put a lot of things there for a lot of different reasons. And, people put what they want to on it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's more of that this season to come.
Do you reckon? Do you reckon there's any? Like how they talk about with archaeologists, where there's these. It's like how many more big finds are there waiting out there? Like how many do you reckon in this show? Like how much do you reckon we've exhausted all the stuff in there, or is there anything left? Is there any kind of incentive to be somebody who finds one of the big ones that still hasn't been discovered, or is that too much of an optimistic,
No,
idealistic thing?
I think that there's still things in there you can find. I think you can always, I think if we talk about it again in another 6 years, we'll look at it differently and point out different things.
Mm.
That's what I think. Um, and a big find for the show is a deep dive with Damon Lindelof saying why he put this here and this here and this here, but he doesn't talk in specific things. He doesn't say, I'm going to Australia in the third season. He knows that he's put little things about Australia here and Australia there, and just for fun, a perfect strangers thing here, and just for fun next season, a perfect strangers thing here. He doesn't know he's going to write Don't Be Ridiculous and have the guy from Perfect Strangers in it. Do you know what I mean? Does that answer your question? I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm just kind of so I can indulge myself in fantasies of finding a big one. Maybe.
Well, I didn't get the thing about the assassination of Patty, so I mean,
There
keep
you
going.
go.
Yeah. Well, we kind of
Learned
knew
a
he
bit
was
of.
gonna. Well, we knew he was going to wind up here with Grace at night with the trank gun, so we saw the other side of that, right? He wakes up the next day and Grace is checking shoes from a donation bag, and his dog is passed out from his own medication. Grace and Kevin Sr. have tea. She tells a story about the 15th, because it's Australia, it happened on the 15th. Which is another way of proving you can't put too much faith in dates of things because it's not the same everywhere. Which might go back to the Millerites. She tells the story of the 15th. She was in the grocery store. The rapture happened. She made it home. She thought everyone was taken. She made no effort to look for them as she was happy that they were taken. 2 years later, her children's bodies are discovered. They had no way of knowing if she was coming home or if she vanished like their father. She thought Kevin Jr. was sent by God with a message just for her. And I have an audio clip.
This was in your hand. A page written like scripture. One I'd never seen or heard of before. It tells of a man, a police chief named Kevin, who drowned and passed into the land of the dead and spoke to them, who freed them from their pain and rose again. Just 20 kilometres from here, there's a police chief named Kevin. What are the chances of that? It had to be him. So I went to him, to Kevin, and I asked for his help. And when he refused, I drowned him. Because I thought he was testing me. Because I thought he'd come back. And once I'd proved my faith, he would have no choice but to help me talk to my children one last time. So I thought he was sent by God. Sent with a message just for me. But you're not an angel. There is no message. And God doesn't care about me. It's all just a story I told myself.
I wanted to play that because, one, I mean, it's kind of as leftovers as you can get this whole end scene, right? It's got the story. It's got her horrible story. It's got the leftovers hammer music, right? The emotional punch of the music. And I'll just read the end here. She goes on to say it was just a story she told herself, like she's going crazy. And Kevin Sr. says, "No, Grace, I don't think you're crazy at all. You just got the wrong Kevin." And this was a point I asked you about after the reaction, right? First of all, I think we have two people that are willing to read anything into anything at this point. And, you know, now that you've had a little bit of time to think about it, what do you think Kevin Sr. means by that?
I mean, it was a tough question when you first asked me, and it's not got a whole lot easier since. Because the whole episode, it feels like has been building up the image of Kevin Senior as thinking he is the one. He's the one that needs to save them all. He's the one that the book should be about. And so it would seem weird for him to deviate from that here and say, the Kevin that you're looking for is my son, given that that's not the narrative he's been pushing the whole episode. And so based on that fact alone, I think I'd want to say him, but I know, we have limited runtime. We know Kevin Senior and Kevin Garvey are going to come together sooner or later, and it also feels like Kevin Senior's had his moment. Like, this is his episode. He's had his time in the sun. No pun intended. And so it's kind of time to shift the focus back to where it should be, which is Kevin Jr. And this is a nice way of doing that. So I still feel like it could be either, but for storytelling purpose and for keeping the episodes moving and for providing a great bridge between this one and back into Kevin Jr. and Nora, I feel like it would be Kevin Jr. that he's talking about here.
And so this episode, Crazy White Fella Thinking, to kind of wrap it up on it, for this season of The Leftovers, where does it stand for you in the first 3 episodes you've seen?
In terms of how much I enjoyed it?
Yeah.
Is this this is just number 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I think it would go episode 1, then this one, then episode 2.
Oh, you liked episode 2 less than this?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I mean, I gave a couple of reasons last time why Nora was a little bit grating in that episode, and I always find Kevin Senior to be less grating. He's one of my more favorite characters. Okay. And he's got such a cool voice that I don't mind listening to him speak for an hour. And it's, I don't know, it's a good combination, this episode. It's got a lot of incredible cinematography. The music comes in, certainly. There's all kinds of leftovers stuff going on, weird stuff, out there stuff. If there's anything this episode is missing, it's just the rest of the cast, like Kevin Garvey Jr. and the rest of them, because there's only so far you can go with Kevin Garvey Sr. alone. But like I said, I think we've kind of maxed out how far that is, and we certainly had a good time doing it.
Yeah, and it's Scott Glenn's only character-centric episode for the entire series.
Mm-hmm.
He's incredible. Lindsay Duncan, who's the actress who plays Grace, is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And it really it's a big, in the most leftovers way, like a piece setter, a place setter for where everything is going to be, because we know that Kevin and Nora are coming to Australia, and that's gonna be a whole lot of fun when we check it out. But
I also feel like I forgot to mention before that Kevin Senior, another way it's going to be a good bridge into what's coming is Kevin Senior. Obviously, this narrative has run its course, but he also knows. Although now that you've told me about those people maybe not being real, I don't know whether we can trust this, but they're saying Chris Sunday's dead, so that kind of marks the end of Kevin Senior's objective. Like he can't fulfill that anymore, can he? Like, I just don't see how. So potentially, yeah, he's given up on that, and that's another reason why he's leaning towards Kevin Jr. being the chosen one.
I feel like he had to go through. Maybe he thinks that God or whoever put him through a lot of things to kind of realize what Matt was trying to tell him. Maybe, that's one way of looking at it. Yeah, man. But as far as it's a slower episode for me. I guess because I like Kevin and Nora so much and all that kind of stuff. But I can see where it was.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. But given that we've not had any Kevin Garver Senior like centric episodes before this,
Right.
it felt like it was a well-deserved opportunity to be in the spotlight and have that moment, and I was willing to let him have that and enjoy the ride.
Yep. And we did the ride. Enjoyed.
I forgot there was one other thing that I for some reason thought was coming up later, but it wasn't. We'd gone past it, and I'd usually let it slide, but I did a little bit of extra reading, so I thought I'd put it in. It was the you know, when he's looking through the photo book,
Yeah.
and there's the scripture. I believe it's Isaiah. From looking at it said Isaiah 41, so I think it is Isaiah 41. I think we can trust that much. And I read through the chapter, and there wasn't too much I found, but there was two verses in particular. I'll just read them to you real quick now. That were kind of cool. So it says, and this is verse 17. When the poor and needy seek water, and there is none, and their tongue faileth for thirst, I the Lord will hear them, I the God of Israel will not forsake them. I will open the rivers in high places, and fountains in the midst of the valleys. I will make the wilderness a pool of water, and the dry land springs of water. So I think that's very, very relevant to this episode and
Most definitely.
Kevin Garvey Sr.'s narrative of the flood.
Sure. That's a good one. Yeah, I really don't have too much to say about it. I guess because I already told you that today was going to be a short talk, but next week is going to be long. So I'm kind of itching to get there. So if anyone's still listening, thanks for listening. Like, share, subscribe. Let's get that number up to 25. Maybe before the end of this, we can get our own YouTube name channel / something. All right. Well, thanks a lot. We'll see you next time. Bye.